Today's video is on a topic that I actually have a lot of interest in, and I'm sorry to those of you who may for some reason get upset that I'm kind of expanding the number of genres or the different kinds of technology we talk about on a tech channel. There's always going to be that one guy that says, "Why aren't you talking about that one new Oppo phone that's going to have a camera underneath the display and there's no notch?" Big whoop, it's still going to take 4 years for Apple to remove the notch. Even when they do, you're going to use the phone the exact same way. So forgive me for trying to diversify, but today we're discussing the idea of a Tesla Model S redesign. Not just a refresh, not just speccing up some newer batteries and giving it some extra horsepower. No, but literally designing it differently to fit into the modern era of the 2020s. Also, will they do it at all? Should they do it, or why they won't do it? All kinds of that we'll be diving into today's video. Without further ado, let's begin. So first of all, there have been lots of different design concepts for the Tesla Model S. One in particular that has gone viral, especially if you just look it up. Of course, it's in the thumbnail of this video. Appreciate all the different designers who like to dive into this topic, because personally, I think it's fascinating to try to make a futuristic version of a car that's already pretty futuristic and is so forward thinking for the modern age for electric vehicles, to the point that I start to understand why some people are designing the next generation Model S to look more aggressive and look way more sharp and feel a lot more edgy than the last generation Model S, because I think if Tesla were to move forward on a redesigned Model S, they would have to take it in a new and different direction, because context, I think, is really important when designing cars in this particular field. When the Model S came out, they were trying to show a mid-volume car that was still expensive. It definitely is not a car that everyone will be able to buy, but it was certainly more reasonable and more functional than the last car Tesla announced, the Tesla Roadster. And for its time, the original Model S was incredibly innovative and was taking lots of huge changes for the interior, having that giant screen and moving forward with software updates that other car companies were not even coming close to in regards to how a car should truly be experienced and how the car should get better over time. They were still trying to appeal, for the most part, to the masses. When redesigning the Tesla Model S and making an upgraded version of it, you have to consider that the previous generation Model S has been around for a long time now. If Tesla were to decide to announce a Model S redesign tomorrow, it would still probably not come out for another 2 to 3 years. So it's safe to say it would be 10 years after the original Model S came out. So what things have changed in the past 10 years? Well, the obvious one for me is the launch of the Model 3. Tesla's attempt at a high volume car that's at an affordable price point, so that lots of different people from all walks of life are able to buy a Tesla, get those software upgrades, get those autopilot and full self-driving features. Meaning, what's the purpose really of the Model S anymore? Right now, in the lineup, even though the design hasn't changed very much over the years, and it's mostly just been about spec boosting, like giving the Model S and X improved range, improved horsepower, slight designs on the front of the car, improvements with autopilot hardware and stuff like that. But if you are to redesign it entirely, what can you really add to it? To me, it's okay that a redesigned Model S would not be catered to the most amount of people. It would almost be like trying to make a more practical and more functional Roadster for people out there who want electric cars, but the Model 3 just isn't enough for them. Sure, the Model 3 is more affordable, it has autopilot, it has full self-driving capabilities. That's cool and all, but if you're going for a car that's over twice the price of the base model Model 3, you're probably wanting something with a little bit more oomph, with a little bit more power and a lot of range and a lot of speed. So that's why I think the aggressive take on the Model S designs is more realistic and more practical for Tesla to go in as a company, because the Roadster is cool, but I think for the most part, it's really just there to set records and to race and to be on TV shows once it officially comes out, and be on YouTubers' videos when it comes out, so people can understand that, hey, electric vehicles can go just as fast as gas cars, if not faster, when they're electrically powered. So the Tesla is trying to bury all those stigmas you had with electric cars. But of course, it's a two-door, it's $250,000, which when you compare it to the other cars it's competing with, sure, the Roadster's kind of affordable, but for the everyday person, even for someone who has a slightly higher paying job than most, it's probably not very practical. The Model S could fill a gap that I think a lot of people could potentially still fill into. You're willing to spend that extra money on the car, you're willing to pay for that extra horsepower, for that extra speed, and that extra range. So in my opinion, it's okay that it would take on a little bit more of a sports car look while still having 4 doors. It's still being able to fit multiple people and having lots of trunk space and providing all of the premium features that Model S users are accustomed to. So interior wise, one design idea I had was that you would incorporate especially the center display of the Model 3, which is more landscape, and also I think much more friendly to smartphone users. A lot of Model S and X owners right now complain that there's not really a good place to put their phone, plus right where your arm naturally wants to rest, there's typically cup holders, and the Model 3 improved on that design in a lot of ways by moving the cup holders more forward, and by switching to that landscape display, they're able to have an easy place for you to drop your phone. Same with the passenger when they want to charge it or just have something running in the background. But one common complaint we see often with the Model 3 interior is that people want the display to be behind the steering wheel so that they can separate how the car's speed is doing, if autopilot's activated and all that, but also to the side have their navigation instead of trying to have it all crammed on one display. If you're coming from a Model S or an X, switching to a Model 3, you'll probably feel like there's not as much screen real estate as you're used to. As someone who prefers things to be kind of clean and minimal, I'm actually perfectly fine with not having a display behind the steering wheel, but I admit that the Model S should be for more Tesla enthusiasts, people who are willing to pay nearly $100,000 on a new car. So in that case, maybe incorporate the Model 3 display in the middle so there's room for the drivers and passenger smartphones. The armrest can be far more comfortable than it is now, but at the same time incorporate a display behind the steering wheel so the people who are coming from previous generation Model S and X Teslas will still feel comfortable in this car, knowing that they can still look through the steering wheel to check on their speed, to check on autopilot, to see the cars around them, and then just have the center display dedicated for navigational and car management purposes. I feel like there's a happy middle ground here between the interior design of the Model S and the 3, kind of taking the best of both and merging them together. In regards to range, it's easy to kind of just make up your own numbers here, but Elon did say at the last shareholder meeting that having a 400-mile range Tesla is coming very, very soon. So I imagine that if the Model S was getting a redesign, it of course would have a much better range than the previous generation, which right now is kind of a record holder for current available electric cars you can buy today. Current Model S long range gives you 370 miles on an electric car. For a gas car, I get it, it's not that impressive, but if you consider the fact that this car can charge from home, unlike a gas car, and that means that most of the time you're probably going to be leaving the house at full charge, unlike a gas car, the fact that Teslas are nearing the department of having over 400-mile ranges, and if Tesla does decide to redesign the Model S, it more than likely will have a range over 400 miles. That is going to be insane, especially if you consider the version 3 superchargers Tesla is rolling out, how quickly you'll be able to charge up this next generation Model S down the road, meaning road trips is going to be easier than ever because you can literally go just as far, maybe farther than the average gas car, charge it up really quickly, and then keep on driving on the road. And of course, this one will likely be fully capable of driving itself. So we're talking about the ultimate road trip experience, as well as I'm hoping still being able to top the speed and acceleration that we got with the last generation Model S, or the current generation Model S, I guess I should say. So obviously it cannot compete with the speed of the Tesla Roadster coming next year, but if they could meet somewhere in between the Roadster and the P100D, maybe get 2.1 seconds to 0 to 60 and improve on the Model S's top speed and just kind of make it more of a car that people can justify spending the extra money because they're going to notice that performance boost year over year. If it's just an aesthetically different looking car, interior and exterior, yeah, maybe some people would upgrade, but I think those performance and range enhancements are really going to sell people on it, especially given this car hasn't really seen a redesign in the past 7 to 8 years. But here comes the not so fun part of the video, which is, should Tesla refresh the Model S into a new design for the 2020s? I know a ton of people are like, well, of course they should refresh it. And for the most part, I do agree with you. It'd be super cool if they decided to revamp it, make it of a more sporty / luxury car that still could work for families, but also allow people who really want that raw performance and that extended range available for them. It would be nice. However, the Model S sadly is not as important for Tesla as it used to be. As Elon always talks about at their events, they kind of had this master plan of start with a sports car that's low volume, move to a mid-volume luxury sedan, and then move to a high-volume affordable sedan for everyone. And that master plan has kind of played itself out, and it's working for them as of now. They're mass producing the Model 3, and it equates to basically 80% of their sales right now. And I'm sure over the years that percentage is likely to increase, especially with the Model Y launching next year as well. More people buying that car, meaning the number of people buying the Model S and the Model X is going to shrink slimmer and slimmer down. Later this summer, we're going to see the pickup truck, obviously, and Elon has said in interviews that he wants to price that below $50,000, which I think is extremely competitive and will be very impressive if they can get that price point that low. But once those 3 new generation, more affordable vehicles are out, the 3, the Y, and the pickup, there's going to be very little market left for the S and the X, meaning could Tesla invest a lot of money on redesigning and changing up their factory so that they can support this new design for a second generation Model S that's way faster, better range, updated interior so it doesn't look the way Model S's have looked for so long? Sure, they could invest a lot of money in that, but as we all know, Tesla's kind of not known for turning a huge profit right now. It might be in Tesla's best interest to just focus on kind of mainstreaming the Model 3, getting that price point as low as possible, as Elon has openly said he would like to get the Model 3 even cheaper than it currently is. That's probably going to, in the long run, result in more profit for them than revamping the Model S would be. I get it would be cool, and I love talking about the potential with it. I'm all for you there, but in regards to what's best for the company and the fact that they're not necessarily flipping a profit too often, I totally understand why Elon Musk, as much as he may want to redesign the Model S, may decide to not go forward with it and instead focus on making the Model 3 and the Y cheaper, as well as the mass production required for the pickup truck, the Y, and focusing on mass production so that all the people buying those cars can have better quality control and better customer service. And it's sad, I agree. It's sad that the Model S and the X may never get refreshes or may never get redesigns. Of course, they might just get the standard battery improvement over time, but in regards to actual redesign, I'm sad to say it may not happen at all. And I know there's some of you out there saying like, well, they redesigned the Roadster. The Roadster they launched back in 2008, and here we are in 2020. They're redesigning that thing. Well, if you consider the fact that it was their first car, they didn't make that many of them. And if you've seen the interior of an original Roadster, you can understand what I'm saying by it's not exactly consistent and the same as the rest of Teslas as we know them today. You know, there's a lot of design changes between the S and the X and the 3, but for the most part, you're used to having that big touchscreen with software updates and autopilot features. Back with the original Roadster, it wasn't any of that at all. It was mostly just a modified Lotus, and the big selling point back then was literally just, it's fast, it's electric, therefore you should buy it to help save the planet and help our startup company. The Roadster was in dire need of a refresh. That's what I'm trying to say. And they also don't sell the Roadster anymore. It was very problematic in production, and it also ran into a lot of problems on the road. So I can see totally why Tesla has invested the time and the money into refreshing the Roadster, just to kind of show off to all other gas car companies that, hey, electric can be super fast, super practical, have really good range, and still not have to be millions of dollars like gas cars do to perform like the Roadster does. But the Model S, that is still getting software updates. The Model S, they are still manufacturing, they are still selling it, unlike the original Roadster. So I'm basically trying to say there's an argument to refresh the Roadster, given it was barely considered a Tesla by today's standards. It was made by Tesla, but it was very much a limited edition, not very common car, whereas the Model S is still pretty relevant. Even though the design hasn't changed very much, it still gets software updates, it can still get the full self-driving, they can still improve the battery packs to make the range longer, and it will still feel like a Tesla when people go out and drive one and give you that Tesla experience of touchscreens and software updates and supercharged network and things like that. But updating it might just be considered a little unnecessary for the company right now. They may have to focus more on the products that the masses are going to buy, and that sadly means kind of shelving the dream ideas that we talked about today. So sorry to leave it on kind of a somber note. I hope I'm wrong. Let's put it that way. I hope Tesla does find the time. I hope Tesla does find the resources in their budget to be like, you know what, we can redesign the Model S. We're gonna make some kind of super sporty, luxurious redesign for this car so that people who are in the market for a car a little bit under $100,000 will have something with incredibly good range, incredibly good speed, but still be able to seat 5 people and have a very spacious trunk and frunk space. I really, really do hope it happens. I'm just saying, looking at the logistics of it right now, it's probably not going to be anytime soon. So keeping that in mind, keep on dreaming. I'd love to hear more of your ideas. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter or Discord, and we can talk more about what you guys think they should add in a second generation Model S, a redesigned version, because I love talking about this kind of stuff. It fascinates me. This is your Tesla Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.